Is your husband tired of you burning his toast?
Stop it. Stop it.
Vision, help him.
Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're discussing WandaVision. To properly discuss this show, I'd like to start off with a few points of consideration and why I found myself so attracted to this new series. Firstly, it's fun. It feels very much like an eroding fever dream of how a non-American pictures American life through the ages. That's largely in part because that's what's happening in the show, and the effect is great comedy that I think many people can relate to. It's laughable, laugh track comedy, right? And the biggest part of the show so far is a satire about American life and the TV shows that many people grew up watching. But the thing that really got me and sunk figurative fangs into my literal neck is that there is a secret about this world that we have to figure out, and our characters are questioning the nature of their reality. I don't believe this is simply the American Dream TV show. I believe it is a story of one incredibly powerful woman that is consumed by grief and loneliness, creating a pocket reality to build a narrative that she can believe and she can understand and she can cope with. One where she does not lose the love of her life, and one where Tony Stark and Stark Industries do not build bombs, but they build toasters. The larger part of that has not been revealed yet, and we can only deduce these things to be true. Where the story exists after these first two episodes, really we can only ponder those things. And like always, I hope to ponder them along with all of you so that we can theory craft and storytell our way to what I hope is an exquisite finale. So, let's begin with the first episode. Clearly inspired by the Dick Van Dyke Show, as well as Bewitched, I Love Lucy, what we're being shown is someone who romanticized these shows. There's, of course, a reason that this reality, or, whatever's happening at this point in the show, is taking place in this exact form. The first line of the show is,
"My wife and her flying saucers."
My husband and his indestructible head.
The note about his indestructible head is the first very big thing that lets us know what the show is doing. During his battle with Thanos, Vision was defeated when the Mind Stone was ripped from his head and his lifeless body tossed aside. This early comment that Vision has an indestructible head tells us what Wanda is doing here. She created this world where her husband isn't dead, and the horrific sight of his death is the furthest thing from possible in her new world. The comment about the flying saucer could also be witty wordplay pointing to some kind of extraterrestrial involvement, masked as, of course, a simple comment about broken plates. Then we come to today's date, which is August 23rd, year unknown. Now, this may be taking it way too far, but you all know me. So I've looked up the years that August months start on a Tuesday, and since we know Vision dies roughly in 2018, I believe this to be 2023. Though there are a few ways the showrunners could write this, and the time is almost 1,000,000,000% relative in this reality that she has fabricated, so this may not matter at all, right? The more important thing, of course, is the heart. The first episode turns this question into comedic hijinks, playing into tropes of the husband going to work to do God only knows what, forgetting anniversaries, neighbors freely coming and going out of your house, and many others. The heart, in my opinion, isn't a day that they could possibly understand, because I believe it's the day that Wanda created this pocket universe. It was the day that her heart literally couldn't take it anymore, and it broke. She broke. The reason that they can't remember is because her mind is protecting her from this. It's the same reason that the man chokes on his food when he is pushing the question of why they came there. It's the reason every uncomfortable instance gets resolved before they are revealed for being the imposters that they are. She is in control with a higher functioning part of her brain protecting her from the truth so that she can live in this fantasy for as long as possible, I believe. There's still a few variables here, but I believe that's what's happening now. Our first indicator that Vision isn't really here is when they describe directly that he is incapable of forgetting. Sadly, this isn't Vision. I will say I absolutely adore the casting of the show so far. Everybody just seems well suited for the role that they're playing, but Paul Bettany here has been a favorite of mine since I first saw his bare butt on the side of the road before he helped Sir William rearrange his stars. He consistently impresses me, and watching these first two episodes really reminded me of how much I enjoy his presence on screen. Then we come to Agnes. She is the lovable neighbor who, whenever she speaks, my ears perk up, telling me that one of these things are not like the other. After looking online, many believe that she is someone called Agatha Harkness. Agatha was a powerful witch in the comic series that helped Wanda grow her own powers at times until, spoiler alert, Wanda kills her. I think the actress being a face that many people recognize also points to her being a bigger character than the other neighbors. And I would equally love to see Agatha's story intertwine with this one because it leads to many possibilities, including a character called Mephisto coming into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is kind of the devil and could become the next big bad for our good guys to face off against. Her story also relates to the House of M comic series, where Wanda loses her mind, creates her own universe, manufactures 2 children, and then casts a spell that give every one of the Avengers and X-Men what they always desired. My point in explaining all of that is to say, watch Agnes whenever she speaks. I believe that she is speaking in riddles, possibly pointing to her being trapped in this universe with Wanda, which we see with a few others as well, I believe. Her reference to her husband, Ralph, always seems fishy to me. It's of course playing on the trope where, we never meet the spouse of certain characters that we love and adore through many years of television. But I think Ralph may actually be this Mephisto character as well. Their first conversation is about getting freaky with her totally real human husband, which, if you didn't know, that's how babies get made. Children, of course, being a big part of the second episode. So I think it's worth noting where this starts off at. They are discussing pleasing Vision for the anniversary, which then becomes the beds being pushed together, which then turns to pregnancy. It feels like this is Wanda's dream and a defense mechanism to not acknowledge Vision's death, but it feels like someone or something could be messing around inside, helping shape what she thinks is happiness and maybe be the creation of these children. I think we see the good and bad forces doing this when we see the S.W.O.R.D logo that we will talk about later, and possibly the witch here trying to get her to create offspring for a reason that we don't yet know. I also want to point out this pillow. I don't know why, but it's bothered me since the very first time I watched it. I don't know why the set designers did this because all the other pillows are random plain patterns except for this one, and it feels out of place. And I haven't heard anybody else talk about this, so I just wanted to say it. And it kind of feels like they're saying it's a box inside of a box, but is this just a pillow? Let me know in the comments below. Next, we come to Vision at work, yakety yak playing, telling the office, hey, conformity is cool, don't talk back. Of course, I'm simplifying it and don't wish to discuss how it's actually a song about children cleaning their room, but yeah, it's interesting to consider why Vision is having alone time without Wanda on screen. If this is solely her manufactured world, I think it leaves the possibility that a version of him does now exist, but again, I'm still considering him dead. Wanda has great power, and these powers in these 2 episodes have elaborated more on what she can now do, but I don't think the Avengers ever properly explained how powerful she is, and this could 100% be him, as in she brought him back, or it could be puppeted by her magic, creating Vision without a real Mind Stone. Then we come to the commercial about burnt toast.
Is your husband tired of you burning his toast?
The first thing that came to me was when Wanda killed Vision, like so. But then I thought about how stroke victims have described the smell of burning toast after the event. I wonder if this isn't subtly pointing that, this happened to Wanda and how we got here. But it also helps define what Wanda really did to this world. You see, Wanda and her brother hated Tony Stark and Stark Industries for years.
We're 10 years old. When the first shell hits 2 floors below, it makes a hole in the floor. Our parents go in. The whole building starts coming apart. Roll under the bed and the second shell hits, but it doesn't go off. It just sits there in the rubble, 3 feet from our faces. And on the side of the shell is painted one word: Stark. We were trapped for 2 days.
So she created a universe where Stark Industries never created missiles, they created toasters. The beeping is a callback to the missile, and the warm-up noise is the Iron Man repulsor sound. Same goes for the commercial later for Strucker watches. Hydra isn't some top-secret bad guy organization, and Wolfgang Strucker did not experiment on her and her brother, he designed watches. Now, something that also happens in both of these commercials is the distortion of time. The toaster commercial, we can hear a beeping that should be going off at regular intervals, increasing in speed, and the watch commercial, the ticking of the clock, does the same thing. This kind of foreshadows her ability to manipulate time, which we see at the end of episode 2, also kind of with the turning the chicken back into eggs, and it also reminds us of the Infinity Stones, though right now I'm still considering them completely destroyed. Something I think is worth remembering, though, is that Wanda and her brother were given their powers from the Mind Stone. So yeah, there is a ton of possibility here for how they tell the story. Ending the toaster commercial, we hear this.
Forget the past. This is your future.
Which is a little on the nose, but telling us that Wanda wants to forget reality and believe this to be her future. We then see Mr. and Mrs. Hart come home, and we get a reminder of her non-American upbringing masked as sitcom tomfoolery. It's a great reminder because, of course, her home was destroyed during the Age of Ultron, but probably not in this world. She is Sokovian, and in the X-Men series, this was a place considered to have a high population of mutants with the X gene, which I think would be a great place to integrate the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to include the X-Men, more mainstream, because there are a lot of great stories there. And of course, this is the start of the phase 4 of that series. So I think introducing the X-Men into the story now, this would be a great way to do it. Wanda goes into the kitchen, blinks into a new outfit, and then somehow forgets that she can manifest material. And this, of course, allows Agnes to stumble back into the picture and be the helpful neighbor. After some tense moments where they're almost exposed, breakfast is served for dinner, and then the questions start. Now, when I first watched this, the first thing that came to mind was that Wanda and Vision are being observed here. Like they were trying to find out their magic, and afterward, after they saw the demonstration, they simply left. I think it's still possible, but the way I understand this scene is more of Wanda's subconscious trying to fight with itself, much like a dream or a nightmare would. At a dinner party, it's perfectly acceptable to ask questions of your company, but when neither can answer, it amplifies, as if she's getting nervous and scared and her mind is fighting back. The simple question that would probably be asked at every single dinner party repeats in her mind until it needs to be stopped, until he is banging on the table for answers and she makes him shut up. I believe that she is in control here, but her mind is battling with what she knows happened in the real world versus what she's built now. This is further proven when Miss Hart is staring directly at Wanda, knowing full well that she is in control, and demands that she stops what she's doing to him, even though it appears as though he was choking because of his own inefficient mastication. I don't think Miss Hart is an agent, like coming into this reality to help or fix Wanda. I think these are parts of her brain trying to fill out the story of them being there, while she battles her internal feelings about what she's done. Vision would never in a million years sit there and cower like a dog waiting for Master's approval of his power. The reason that he does is because Wanda didn't know what to do. A part of her mind was happy that the question had stopped. A part of her was still contemplating the answer to that question about how they got there. And another part was crying out that it's not okay to silence people like that, thus manifesting as Miss Hart staring directly at her, saying, "Stop it." Of course, the object is removed and they quickly leave the house, not even a scratchy throat after he had almost died. Again, I think it's entirely possible that these are real people, but I think if they are real, that she has agency over them and is controlling much more than she realizes. Also, I think something to note is the wine bottle, linking us again to the House of M story from the comic series that I talked about earlier. Then, of course, she makes some wedding rings appear out of thin air, even though this was never a power that she had before, and we get a nice kiss as Vision and Wanda watch TV to a cued studio audience that he presses the button for. The TV turns into a person writing notes about the TV show, and we see the S.W.O.R.D logo in plain sight. S.W.O.R.D is the Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division, and they are a counterpart to S.H.I.E.L.D. And right now, I'm considering them the good guys, trying to help Wanda get out of this manufactured reality. The switch and TASCOM DA40 means that this is the modern day, and the red and green charts here possibly pointing to Wanda and Vision being monitored, or Wanda and one other possibly, though it could also be monitoring radiation or, disruptions in her reality kind of thing. Something that may come up later if the world ever does become unstable. I also think this points to the pocket reality being confined to a physical location, like a physical Westview that exists, and possibly if S.W.O.R.D and others don't act quick enough, this could expand and possibly consume the whole world. This feels very much like Wanda has lost a conscious control over this thing, and we may be heading more toward the House of M comic series that I spoke about earlier, where it kind of just becomes the standard. That is just the universe after she has reshaped it to her liking. The last thing I want to point out here is the use of hexagons. I love hexagons, so whenever I see them, they just stand out to me for some reason, but I think the show might be using them for some purpose, which we discuss a little bit later on, but this was the first one noticeable to me in the closing scene here, so keep an eye out if there are any more. Starting off, we have some funny clips where Vision is a scaredy cat and a branch turns out to be the thing that goes bump in the night. But what if it was not just a branch that made this noise, but something threatening her perfect world, and she is perceiving it as a branch knocking on her home? The thing that goes bump in the night has a much different sound effect before it's revealed.
What was that?
This idea comes up later when the helicopter is found in the front yard, but I think again it's hinting at Wanda's brain protecting her from the truth. They get jiggy with it under the covers, and we see another hexagon reflected in the animated opening. I think this pattern also points to the Infinity Stones, which may be why we're seeing this shape at all. Though I still think the stones are destroyed at this point in time. The animated opening shows people chanting WandaVision, giving the impression that this is a real place and that she has cast a spell, kind of making real people conform to her will in fantasy. Then the spot-on catchphrase of the town, "Home is where you make it." Something else we see in a quick freeze frame is the helmet of a supervillain called the Grim Reaper, which has some interesting ties to Wanda and Vision's story in the comics and may be a part of the cinematic universe eventually, but I'm going to hold off until we see more. I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about it and then it ultimately just be a little fun Easter egg, right? Right now, I view this as a fun Easter egg, for people that go through the frames of the show and not exposition about who's going to be revealed, though it could be. Back into the false reality, we see that the home has changed entirely, likely a different house that she created for this part of her fantasy life. A bigger home could also be hinting at the creation of children, as if they were considering children from the start, and that's why the episode progresses this way. They discuss the magic trick, which feels somehow like an allegory for the real story as a whole here, but I can't quite place why. The front of the box is also grabbing my attention right away, though I'm not sure what it could be pointing to, though notice the little thing in the middle is also a hexagon, right? They part ways, then we see on the wall here a building. This was the lab where her and her brother gained their powers. I view this, as I talked about Stark and Hydra, as tiny parts of her subconscious remembering these things, but choosing to reshape them as something peaceful instead of something detrimental. The image is really odd. I don't know if this is actually on the wall. It could also be interpreted as she's just imagining this, like, peeking through her subconscious for some reason, and we're seeing that thought manifested in her surroundings. She pats the pillow, and we hear a great crash in the front yard. The noise, just like the branch banging on the window, does not align with what we're being shown. I think they are using sound to hint at the bigger picture, and I think that's the reason that they have Wanda look at the window where her bedroom is, as if she is recalling how strange that was too. Perhaps in reality, this was a real helicopter that entered into the physical space that is now hosting Wanda's pocket reality, and she is processing it as something that can't harm her, something, like a little tiny helicopter that has no power over her to change what she's doing. It has the S.W.O.R.D logo on it, meaning this could have been a rescue mission to get her out or to help her, and was ultimately consumed by the pocket reality. I also think we can deduce who is flying this thing, but we will get into that a little bit later on. The scene feels so much like Pleasantville, or the moment in Truman Show when the light drops from the ceiling. It's kind of like this enlightenment moment, or when you start questioning the nature of your reality kind of thing. It's of course ruined by Agnes. I mean, come on, our character was given time to start putting the pieces together for herself, and along comes the person who might be the bad guy to ruin that moment of reflection. If you need any more proof that she might be evil, look here. Proof of intervention near protagonist's revelation. Even if it was a mistake, it still happens. Agnes stopped Wanda from reflecting on the information that she was exposed to and gets her instead talking about neighborhood drama. I think if we're considering Agnes and S.W.O.R.D on opposing sides, that we need to consider why she wants her to stay in this dream world and how it benefits Agnes, or Agatha, if that is her real name. I think it relates to the children that she's creating and possibly the coming of Mephisto. Also, she brings her pet rabbit into the magic act, which, I mean, come on, it's literally the symbol for fertility. We're on to you, Agnes. They go to the poolside and Dottie plays Queen Bee. Then we see this beautiful line,
"The devil's in the details, Bev."
That's not the only place he is.
Since Mephisto is considered the devil of the Marvel Universe, this feels very intentional. Then we come to Geraldine. Now, this was confirmed in an out-of-show interview with this actress that she is actually playing a character called Monica, who is the daughter of Captain Marvel's friend Maria, now all grown up. I believe that she was the pilot of the helicopter, because think about this. She only enters the story after we see the helicopter crash into the bushes, and, she doesn't really fit in with the other women, right? She herself is saying how she feels out of place and how she wasn't sure how she got there. Her face was hidden when the other women chant for the children, meaning that she may not have said it at all, being as confused as Wanda was when they said that. Given what her mother did, becoming a pilot seems pretty likely, and because of her close ties with Captain Marvel, I'm sure that S.W.O.R.D was willing to jump at the opportunity of inviting her to a top secret organization. So yeah, I believe this is Monica. She was the pilot before the plane crashed. She was possibly on a rescue mission to help Wanda, and is now under the spell of either Wanda or potentially Agnes or another character that we have not met yet that is kind of controlling this world, out of what we're being shown. Vision joins the neighborhood watch and then eats big red gum. It makes him drunk, and it appears this is largely for comedic relief, playing into the idea of this being an old sitcom without honestly, without much substance. The mastication joke was awesome. The communist line felt a little out of place based on, how the Red Scare affected America at the time. But largely, this was just to show us that Vision interacted with other people outside of his time with Wanda, which, like I said before, is interesting. If this is really only her creation, why, would he be acting out of frame, so to speak? Then we come back to the poolside talk with the radio. Dottie starts to confront Wanda, telling her that she doesn't believe that Wanda wasn't here to cause anybody any harm, which is essentially saying that she believes that Wanda is there to harm them. This feels equally like Wanda's battling perceptions of what she's doing, like the dinner scene, or perhaps the real Dottie trying to break out of the control that she has over her. It gets tense until we hear through the radio,
Who is that? Who are you?
the song that is playing mixed with the person talking over it is literally telling us, help me, Wanda, get her out of my heart. As if Wanda was removed from Dottie's heart, or, some other person was removed from Dottie's heart, and she was able to speak freely in that moment. If you watch Dottie's reaction here, it really feels like that's what they gave the actress to work with. Like, she was wondering who Wanda was before the glass breaks. She snaps back to her assimilated world. So I don't think the song is literally interpreted as someone calling Wanda for help. I think they are trying to help Wanda, but she doesn't know it yet. The heart that's referenced is also probably referring to the grief that I believe led to the creation of this perfect world. Then we come to the For the Children talent show. Notice that for all the children that these people care about, there isn't a single child in sight. Not one. Gum-drunk Vision comes back in the nick of time and does magic that threatens to reveal them while delivering exposition masked as drunken nonsense.
Today, we will lie to you, and yet you will believe our little deceptions, because human beings are easily fooled due to their limited understanding of the inner workings of the universe.
Then Vision forgets his wife, leading to the crowd chanting, "What's in the box?" This would never happen in the natural world, right? Perhaps the chanting, but the speed and intensity in which they did it, no way. I mean, this is crazy, right? It feels that, Wanda's curiosity about what he just did mixed with her nervousness about being revealed for who they were, because he wasn't being careful, amplified the crowd's reaction. Like, they all joined in, not because they wanted to know, but because Wanda's mind feared the reveal. Like any good nightmare, it immediately manifests as the worst case scenario when you think about something. This might be a bad example, but you're never falling just an inch, right? Whenever you think about falling, you're falling off of an Empire State Building. So I think here what happens is, because of her conflicted emotions in this dreamscape, it is amplified as, instead of just her being curious about what's in the box, the entire crowd, the worst case scenario is happening. Everybody is demanding to know what is in the box. She, of course, teleports Geraldine into the box, which is a new power in this reality, and then finds the gum inside of the cog-filled stomach of Vision. This is also a good indicator that this isn't the real Vision and exists solely through the lens of Wanda. They finally get home and start talking about children, and boom, preggers. Now, since we haven't seen any children, and she's referring to getting children popcorn instead of a singular child popcorn, and because we know that she herself was a twin, I think we can say to a reasonable degree that children is the correct verbiage, and she may be having twins. I imagine, like her brother, one boy, one girl, and both of them may actually have superpowers because of how they were created, similar to the House of M comic series. They hear another sound outside of their home that doesn't align with the action. It's a loud bang like the one against the house, but when they leave the house, they see a man leaving the manhole in the street. Again, I think her mind is letting stuff slip through ever so subtly. The noise points to whatever is happening in the real world, and the image that she's seeing is a man wearing a S.W.O.R.D beekeeper outfit coming to ruin her day. She has that very universal moment in the nightmare when you can wake yourself up, and she rewinds to before it happens, and somehow makes it never happen. She has great power over this world, and the episode closes with the reassurance that this is definitely the real world and the move to Technicolor, which is how we will see the next episode. The beekeeper is probably a member of S.W.O.R.D, and I think wearing a radiation suit, trying not to be sucked into her reality, and, of course, failing. But her mind is showing it as something that doesn't break that immersion. Radiation is scary. A beekeeper is not, though her higher functioning mind does understand it and then tries to resolve it by rewinding time, right? Others have talked about this foreshadowing a bad guy named Swarm, though I don't think that's the case yet, and I don't really want to talk about that if that is not the case, and I don't think it is. So, but with that, we come to the end of the video. Please point out anything that I may have missed in the comments below, and please be sure to subscribe if you're watching WandaVision. We will be covering this show as much as I can because I am so ready to figure the mystery out. Special thanks to my wonderful patron, Michael Linck. If you're interested in supporting the smaller side of YouTube content creation, please consider joining Patreon as well, and yeah, supporting this channel. Much love, everybody, and I cannot wait to talk to you all again soon.
Wanda,
Who's doing this to you, Wanda? Wanda!